Welcome to City Council meeting of June 27, 2016, and I didn't pull the agenda out, but I think we salute to the flag by myself.
Is it you?
Yep.
We'll do roll call.
Okay.
That might be good.
Have your agenda. Gotta look.
Councilmember Keener.
Here.
Councilmember Neihardt.
Present.
Councilmember Irvin is excused. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill is excused. Mayor DeGree.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I get to do the salute to the flag, and it's very nice, I'll say right away, to have so many of our employees here to be honored. Really happy for this occasion. Okay, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Closed session report?
No closed session and nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. So this evening, we have two proclamations. One is for Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Month, and the other one is employee recognition for the El Nino Storm-Related Agency, and that did cover very many employees. This was a big, big issue. So just get everybody here. So you can see by, I have it there.
Oh, okay.
Did you give me the stickies?
They're all on the front.
All right, so as you can see, it's a lot of work. So I will call the heads of the departments, and then I will read the recognition, and each one of the members gets one of these, and after I finish reading it, you will come up for a photo to make more history. Okay, so city administration, so it'd be our manager, Lori Tinfo. If those folks would come up and get these, and then I will, and they will pass the individuals out to their staff, immediate staff. Planning, Director Tina Wehrmeister. PB&R, Mike Perez. You want to do that? Public Works, Van Ocampo. Quite a lot.
Might I make a suggestion?
Sure, and Police Department Chief Dan Steidl.
When you give out the packets, maybe the department heads could each call their employees up so we could see who all's here and
Yes, that would be.
recognize them on the
I like that
TV
idea.
for the public. And
Actually, even if you are shy, I would actually like if the department heads would go to the microphone over there and call your members up, because you can stand here and get some praise. I'm sure you're not that shy. So
Good
after
evening.
you're up here, I will read this.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. City Manager Lori Tinfo, thank you for this opportunity to recognize the staff who did work so hard to take good care of the city during our most recent El Nino storm season. Starting off to call up the employees in my area, and some of them may be here and some may not be here. So I'm going to go ahead and read their names, and hopefully everybody who's been able to join us will come up to the front to pose for that picture that we're going to be taking.
we can just gather them up here.
Yeah, come on up. Please
First
come
is
up.
Vivian Petarendondo. Mario Zareb. Sarah Coffey. Me. And Lorenzo Hines. If you could join me up at the front if you're in the audience.
Yeah, please come. Next. Please do.
Good evening, Council. I'm Dan Steidl, your Chief of Police. And for my folks, when I call your name, please come forward. Record Supervisor Nancy Bartoli. Volunteer Rhonda Shaw. Records Clerk Bettina Blake. Reserve Officer Greg Graziani. Reserve Officer Bill Bretz. Sergeant Bill Glasgow. Captain Chris Clements. Reserve Officer Matt Lujan. Captain Joe Spanheimer. Reserve Officer Brandon Smith. Reserve Officer Jonathan Caro, Reserve Officer Atticus Monroe, Reserve Officer Ken Fong, Volunteer Carmel Gallagher, and Volunteer Dan Gallagher.
Hello, I'm Tina Wehrmeister, Planning Director, and I'll be reading the employees who participated from the Planning Department. B. Schaffelberger, Tina Gibbs, Christian Murdoch, Mike Culley, and Lawrence Nye.
Mike Perez, the Parks, Beach, and Recreation Director. And we have Ann Cooney from Senior Services. Cindy Fuentes, also from Senior Services. Dominic Deanda, one of our recreation leaders. Michael Moran, our Recreation Coordinator. And Shay Matherly, a Recreation Leader. That's it.
Good evening, Van Ocampo, Director of Public Works, representing both wastewater and field services division. So from wastewater, we have Tina Sad, Peter Schwereb, Susan Taxton, Mike Williams, Anthony Magistrato, Roy Jackson, Joaquin Contreras, Carlos Cardenas, John St. Ange, Doug Trade, Rafe Wolfgram, Octavio Betancourt, Juan Castro, Maria Aguilar, Lori Gervin, Debbie Garrett, Paul Lavarini, Daniel Heath, Brian Martinez, David Peel, Arnulfo Benitez. For our field services side, we have Ron Facenda, Jessica Dominguez, Jean-Pierre Eliseche, Aaron Clark, Raymond Biagini, Van Ocampo, Esteban Renteria, Lee Panza, Bernie Mao, Chris Martin, Pius Garcia, Clint Esrick, Patrick Ernie De La Sarde. Jeff Billock. Lee Van Brunt. Rolando Silazar. Ryan Marquez. Kevin McCurdy. Cheryl Cole. Matt Fleck. Raymond Dunguines. Glenn Stevens. John Ritwiger.
Eventually, they're going to have to walk in front of each other.
Claudio Ramirez. And last but not least, Chito Ordonez.
Eventually, we're going to have to make a couple rows, you know.
Yes, exactly. So for the public tuning in, we're very pleased and happy to recognize our employees that were called into emergency work during the El Nino. So we will be taking a photograph in a minute, but each of them did receive this proclamation that I'm going to read so that you, the public, can participate in this. And for our members of the council who are not here, who would, regrettably are missing this, so I will start. In recognition of City of Pacifica employees for their hard work during the El Nino storm-related emergency, whereas the treacherous El Nino storm hit Pacifica and caused extensive damage to trees, homes, and city infrastructure, public works staff and the wastewater treatment plant employees were able to deal with storms with minimal damage. So this is a template, but I just named one of the departments, but these are all the departments that were in. Whereas the employees of the police and fire departments also contributed to ensuring that the community remained safe during the storms. And whereas city administration, planning department, parks, beaches, and recreation department, and the finance department all played an integral role during and in the aftermath of the El Nino storms. The City Council would like to thank all city employees for their efforts, whereas the City of Pacifica has benefited greatly because of the dedication and hard work of its employees who went above and beyond to assist the city's local emergency storm-related incidents. Whereas these employees are consistently courteous and helpful to others while working in a difficult and dangerous situation, placing their concern for the well-being of our citizens and community above their personal well-being. Whereas the city is honored to pay tribute to these employees who personify the true meaning of champion and whose compassion and genuine commitment to the welfare of other human beings is a source of inspiration to everyone. Whereas it is likely that people and property in our community would have been more seriously affected by the storms had these employees not performed at the highest level of public service in the midst of these emergencies. Whereas the city recognizes and celebrates the valuable contributions of these employees and thanks them for their exemplary conduct and outstanding performance in an emergency, done this 27th day of June, 2016, and thanks to all their families who I'm sure worried and were without them for a long time. So thank you, everybody. We'll clap and get in front for a photograph.
Yeah, I just think if we're going to say anything while you're here, it just touches my heart about how much you all do for the city and the citizens in this town, and how you do it with so few people. And compared to other cities, I don't think we could have better staff. Just thank you.
If there's any way to get all of you, just this tiny phone.
Tall guys in the back, able-bodied men who can kneel in the front, everybody else can go.
And we need Director Mike Perez again. And this for the Recreation Department. It's Parks and Recreation Month. We'll give folks time to move along. Hope you enjoy your evening, and thank you once again. All right, in honor of Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Month, summer has started. Need my glasses. Are we good?
Yeah, give it a second. It echoes in that stairwell.
Very happy again to their families for being supportive of our very important and valuable employees.
I'm grateful for the long hours.
Sleep deprivation. Okay. So Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas Parks and Recreation makes lives and communities better now and in the future, whereas Parks and Recreation programs build healthy, active communities and are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Pacifica, whereas it is established through statewide public opinion research, 98% of California households visit a local park at least once a year. 2 in 3 households visit a park once a month. 50% of households participate in an organized recreation program, and most park use is with family and friends. Whereas parks provide access to the serenity and the inspiration of nature and outdoor spaces to play and exercise, parks preserve and protect the historic, natural, and cultural resources in our community. Whereas recreation fosters human development, providing positive alternatives for children and youth during non-school hours to reduce crime and mischief, thereby helping children and youth develop and grow into healthy and productive adults. Whereas Parks and Recreation offer places, spaces, and programs to facilitate social connections, human development, therapy, the arts, and lifelong learning, and Parks and Recreation strengthens community image, sense of place, and increases cultural unity. Whereas Parks and Recreation provides opportunities for directed and self-directed activities which encourage healthy movement, whereas thousands of Pacifica children, adults, and seniors benefit from the wide range of services, parks, facilities, maintenance, and programs, including the Pacifica Skate Park Adventure Camp, Leaders in Training Education, aquatics programs at Brink Pool, Frontierland Park, Fairmont Park, Sanchez Dog Park, Pacifica State Beach, and Recreation Trail along our coast. Recreational classes, senior services, and child care provided by Pacifica Parks, Beaches, and Recreation and the Department of Public Works. Whereas the City of Pacifica urges all its residents to recognize that parks and recreation enrich the lives of its residents and visitors, as well as adding the value to the community's homes and neighborhoods. Therefore, be it resolved, the City of Pacifica hereby proclaims that parks make life better, and the month of July 2016 as Parks and Recreation Month, and in doing so, urges all citizens to use and enjoy our parks and recreational opportunities done this 27th day of June. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Michael Perez, Director of Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Department. Throughout the country, July is being celebrated as Parks and Recreation Month. And here it's Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Month. And on behalf of the Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Department, the Parks Division of Public Works, and the Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Commission, we'd like to ask folks to join us in July and the summer in general, as we have many recreational opportunities for the community through our department programs, activities, parks, beaches, trails, and events. I'd like to recognize a few people. I have two commissioners here, Commissioner Parks, Beach, and Recreation Commission, Commissioner Cindy Abbott and Commissioner Michael Mao are back there, and also like to recognize our Parks Department employees who are still here, as well as our Parks Superintendent Aaron Clark, who he's back there somewhere. He can come up here for a picture. A few things that are happening with Parks and Recreation this month in Pacifica at our Senior Center. There's a bocce ball tournament on the 22nd of July, sponsored by Luigi's. There's also a fall prevention clinic that's happening July 14th through the 25th of August. And Spinjiff players will be performing a sneak preview for the seniors of their upcoming Mary Poppins show on the 14th of July at the center. Childcare sites are going on lots of trips. They'll be at Lake Don, Castro, and Coal Canyon in the East Bay this summer. This month we have the Wild Things Incorporated visiting, which is kind of what it sounds like, wild animals with the kids, snakes and porcupines and foxes and things like that, and they actually bring them out for the kids. It's really great. They're also going to be attending childcare will be at Brink Pool with rec swim and summer lessons. And speaking of the pool, we've got 2 wet and wild water camps this summer happening, one in August, one in July. Every day of the week, including Saturdays and Sundays this summer, through August 22nd from 1 to 3 p.m. Every day of the week, we have recreation swim. Every Tuesday is a 2-for-1 Tuesday where children can bring a friend. So a paying customer brings a friend to the pool and the friend comes free, and that's Tuesdays through August 3rd. Every Wednesday through August 19th, we'll have free rec swim for kids, and this is generously sponsored by Pacifica Moose Lodge, the Pacifica Lions Club, Sea Bowl, Mizpah Fellowship, Rod Musio Electrical Contractor, Granite Electric, and NorCal Surf Shop. We want to thank all of them for that. It's a long tradition of free Wednesdays. The Sea Lions has free tryouts the last week of every month, and if you are looking for a job and you like the water, we're always hiring quality lifeguards throughout the year. Summer youth programs started last week and ends Friday the 12th. We have theme weeks, games, crafts, all that stuff. Adventure Camp has 2 groups, and they are at Odsted School campus, and we have 8 to 12-year-olds and 5 to 8-year-olds, and we have signups. There's still availability throughout the summer. Our Fairmont Recreation Program is going to be open at Esther Hall neighborhood at Fairmont Park this week through through August 12th, and that's 11 to 4 for kids 8 to 13. And I just want to say that summer's really a great time to get outside, to get active, to enjoy the opportunities for self-directed activities such as taking a walk or a ride on the scenic beach multi-purpose trail, enjoying an afternoon in one of our local parks such as Frontierland Park, or going out to the Roy Davies Playground at Fairmont Park. Spending time at our wonderful beaches, always a treat. Sanchez Dog Park, and also the pier right here, as we can tell today. Lots of use there. Parks, beaches, and recreation are an important part of people's lives, and they do make life better. And I want to thank our hardworking, dedicated staff for all their efforts in planning and preparing the summer. We really want to invite the community to join us for 2016 Summer of Fun and Adventure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and to all the employees and volunteers, and also for all those agencies that help provide such a wonderful repertoire. Nobody can say that there's nothing to do in Pacifica, that's for sure. So if you would all come up for a photograph, please, and thank you very much.
More track. Oh, no. I could have brought a Frisbee.
We're saving it for 4th of July.
Okay. More exercise than one day.
So we are at consent calendar, items 1 through 9, and we're pulling number 8 for when there's at another date, and we're pulling number 6 because there needs to be some corrections. So if we could vote on 1 through, well, without those 2, could take a motion. Is that you, Mary Ann?
That's what I was going to do, is move approval of the rest of them,
I've
minus
got a
6 and
question.
8. Okay.
Okay.
I've got a question first, a couple questions.
Well, then I withdraw my motion because,
Okay.
We good?
Lord.
First of all, why are we withdrawing number 8, the resolution establishing various public works departments?
I'm happy to answer that. It was actually a suggestion made by the mayor that we bring it back at a future meeting.
Yes, if I can add to that, for something like that, where we had already discussed it before, if I was absent, I would want to have the right to still be here.
Okay. And let's see. And on number 7, the State Coastal Conservancy Grant Fund. Was there any modification to the contract?
There were, but very minor.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Are we good?
Okay.
All right, thank you for that.
Do you want to request public comment on the consent calendar before the council takes an action?
Do we have any consent, anybody with a yellow card want to say anything about the consent calendar?
No,
Anybody?
there's none there. Okay.
Seeing none from the public, we'll bring it back to council.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Nyhart?
Okay, so I'm going to try again. Move approval of the consent calendar minus 6 and 8.
I'll second.
Okay, call for the vote. Thank you. And we'll bring item 6 up quickly. So Assistant City Manager Hines, thank you.
Mayor DeGree, members of the City Council, I'm Lorenzo Hines, Assistant City Manager. We have before you the city's appropriation limit. It is an item that we bring before the council every year. It establishes the appropriation limit for the forthcoming fiscal year. This particular effort started with the passage of legislation or voter initiative back in November 1979, and again places limits on the amount of revenue which can be spent by all entities of government. I wanted to bring to your attention a couple of fixes or a couple of items on 2 pages, and before you, or at the dais right now, you have a revised copy of page 6B of the packet. There was a typo which affected one of our formulas in the spreadsheet, and so we needed to correct that typo and get you the right information. The second item I wanted to bring to your attention was the actual resolution. A couple of the numbers got transposed, and so if I take you down, first of all, the resolution's on page 6. And if I take you to the first, now therefore, or be it resolved, the appropriations limit subject to limitations for fiscal year 2016-17, that number should be $21,723,250. Then we move down to number 3, and that number should be $38,908 or $908,408. And I would also like to reiterate that number 3 is for the 2016-17 totals, not the 15-16 totals. So I wanted to make sure that those corrections were in the record. And again, this is an item we bring before council every year, and we have to have this passed by the beginning of the new fiscal year.
Any questions? Anybody in the public? Seeing none. Bring it back to council. Thank you for catching that. We'll need a vote, folks.
Yeah, I'll move approval.
We need to go back and forth tonight.
Yeah.
It's just you and me.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's Sue, too.
I can't
So
do it. I
I'll
can't
second.
Do much. Mayor doesn't do
Mayor
much. He
doesn't
leaves
make
it
a
to you.
motion.
Yeah, but you can. Anyway, yes, I'll move approval of item number 6, the proposed resolution establishing the appropriation limit for fiscal year 2016-2017 pursuant to Article 13B of the California State Constitution.
And I'll second that.
Call for the vote. Thank you. That passes by all of us present, and 3 excused, 2 excused. All right, we are now at item for oral communications, and I have, okay.
Those 2. That's 10 also.
Okay. All right, for oral communications, we have 2 so far. If anybody else decides they want to say something, please step forward. Pam Raymond and Kelly Bogdanov, there's the pronunciation, Bogdanov, sorry. Thank you for putting in the pronunciation. This is this one.
Hello. Good evening, council members. My name's Pam Raymond, and I'm here tonight to talk about the seawall. I've had the good fortune to have lived on Beach Boulevard for a few decades now, and I've seen many changes over those decades. One is the amount of visitors that flock to this beautiful area to enjoy it. It's a recreational enthusiast mecca. Walkers, cyclists, skaters, joggers, fishermen, surfers, families with small children and strollers, you name it. I'm sure you've all seen it. It's also a magnet for the less abled people to take in the awesome scenery, people with walkers and wheelchairs, seniors from assisted living communities, driving by in vans that can't even get out of their vehicles, but that can drive down Beach Boulevard and see the ocean, maybe roll down the window and breathe in the salty air. Groups of special needs classes from nearby schools regularly walk out here. When I first moved here, I could walk from my house at the end of Beach Boulevard all the way down to Maury Point and not see a single soul. And that would never be the case now. We've We've become a popular destination for thousands of locals and tourists alike. The other change that I've noticed is that the wall, the wall that holds Beach Boulevard and the surrounding neighborhood I've seen many a winter and a lot of poundings from the big swells, but this is the first year that I've actually heard the seawall audibly failing. I could hear it buckling. It's a kind of a bone-chilling sound. I don't know if any of you had the misfortune of witnessing it, but this is an area that our community uses so much, and it's a real asset to Pacifica. If we don't take this opportunity now to ask for federal assistance in building a real seawall, which is what is needed here to preserve this area for continued public access and enjoyment, then we are not only missing a great opportunity, but we are being irresponsible. Please, I'm asking that you put this item on the agenda so that the City Council, our elected officials, can properly address this important topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam Raymond? And then I had the other way around?
No, that was her.
Yeah, I know.
So it's Kelly's next.
It's Kelly. Bogdanoff, right? Did I get that right?
Yes, you got it. Good evening. I'm Kelly Bogdanov, a resident of West Sharp Park. And actually, recent events in Great Britain, whereby the country voted to leave the European Union, and financial markets' very negative reaction to that vote, are blunt reminders that we live in an uncertain world. And for me, it brings back memories of the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, a period which was quite difficult for our city's finances. The reality is we don't know when the next crisis may hit, or when the U.S. may succumb to another recession that would bring belt tightening at all levels of government. That's why I think there's a sense of urgency when it comes to requesting federal funds to replace the seawall on the north side of Beach Boulevard. The U.S. and California economies, even with all of their many shortcomings, are still growing. I respectfully urge you, Council, to strike when the iron is hot. Request federal funds soon while we still have positive economic growth on our side, and request state funds and grants if need be to build a new seawall. It seems like elected federal and state leaders and officials from the Army Corps of Engineers are interested in talking to our city about funding and building a new seawall to replace the poorly constructed wall that we have now. Some of these officials get it. They understand the stakes. Pacifica's promenade along Beach Boulevard is the embodiment of the California Coastal Act. It maximizes access to the coast for everyone, including seniors, including the disabled, babies, toddlers. It's an asset we can be very proud of. We need to protect the promenade and the adjacent underground utilities with a new, properly constructed seawall. Council, it takes local leadership. It takes you to get the ball rolling. Please begin the process by including the replacement of the seawall on an upcoming council agenda.
Thank you. Tom Richardson and Mike Bell. And if anybody else wants to join in.
Good evening. Sorry you're not all here tonight, but it's nice to see you anyway. First of all, I want to express my admiration and respect for your service to our community. Every Pacifican should come to these meetings and observe all of your dedication and hard work that you're putting in publicly and lots more, I'm sure, behind doors and privately, solving problems. So I come to you this evening to add my voice to the growing chorus of voices requesting that you focus on the issue of replacing the retaining wall north of the pier with a real engineered seawall. This, if you focus there, and when you do focus there, then I urge you to vote to do that, replace it, and to move forward with requesting federal and state available monies. This is truly a legacy issue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mike Bell and Brent Ritz. Anybody else? You still have time.
Good evening. Good evening. As you know, for the last 2 months, Mike Bell here, as you know, for the last 2 months, a growing group of citizens have been asking that the problems surrounding the failing wall on Beach Boulevard be put on the agenda to develop an action plan. I discovered that this wall had a catastrophic failure just 2 months after it was completed over 30 years ago. The latest major repair just 4 months ago costs more than the original $2 million price tag for the entire wall. There have been at least 6 catastrophic failures that I am aware of and dozens of smaller repairs almost every year of its existence. I've asked for public records of all the repairs we've made over the last 30 years, where on the wall they occurred, and how much they have cost the city of Pacifica. It's reasonable to assume that we have probably paid for this wall many times over and will continue to do so while endangering the public until the fundamental problem is addressed. The design of this wall was incorrect from the start. What's protecting West Sharp Park from the pounding surf is a retaining wall. It's not a seawall. This retaining wall is a thin 7-inch thick crust of concrete made up of 5x5 plates stacked vertically on one on top of the other and held into place by thin 2-inch wide metal strips tied back into the sand. An adequate solution if all you want to do is hold back sand. However, it has no ability to absorb or deflect the power of waves. This would require a real seawall, which is generally very thick, monolithic concrete structure with a very broad and deep penetrating base to enable it to absorb the power of the waves, an exaggerated outward-facing curve at the top to deflect the power of the waves back into the ocean. The current wall is more like an eggshell with a whole bunch of pre-existing cracks trying to withstand the power of crashing waves. This is why it will continue to fail and remains a high-risk public hazard, not to mention a waste of resources. Jackie Spear wrote 2 memos dated February 12th and 17th, urging the Army Corps of Engineers to come up with a solution for this problem. The first memo focused on the wall in front of the golf course, and the second memo more broadly addressed the need in Pacifica to protect existing infrastructure, property, and amenity. She also verbally said during an inspection of the damage that she would support Pacifica's request to build a new seawall along the promenade north of the pier. So what are we waiting for? The city needs to formally apply for this federal assistance. Every day that goes by is wasting time and political currency. If we citizens are not using the proper protocol, then please instruct us on how to get this urgent issue immediately placed on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Stednick? Did I miss you, Brent? I'm sorry. Brent first. Thank you.
Good evening, Brent Ritz. I think you're trying to skip me at this point. I feel like a woodpecker showing up every 2 weeks and knocking on your house.
Woodpeckers are good.
Same issues, in this case, 2 issues this evening, Beach Boulevard seawall, and also consideration for item number 10 on our agenda regarding the rezoning of the beach and the impact report. So I'll tackle the first one. Obviously, everybody's been watching the financial reports and what's been going on in the news, and the fact that capital markets are changing. I addressed this to the council last year. I probably brought it up a few times. What I don't tell you is I'm in the financial industry myself. I'm on Sand Hill Road every single day in the financial district. And I'll flat out tell you these sovereign funds and pension funds are just still deploying money. The reality is in 08, I was at a fund that had probably $50 or $60 billion. Give you an idea, we had 52% redemptions in 30 days. Okay? And at 2000, give you an idea of what the redemptions were, they were 2%. Okay. I will tell you the conditions, markets are fragile. If there is money to be obtained, I would do it now. My personal opinion, we've already had one negative quarter of S&P 500 declines of 9.6%, where some of those have gone to more agile, large companies. I would very much project that we're going to have a second quarter, which would be a recession by any definition of the term. Okay, and this is with quantitative easing in effect. So my personal opinion, capital markets are still free to obtain capital for this. I would go ahead and do it. I understand the government moves in a methodical and interesting manner compared to the private sector, but I definitely pursue it as quickly as we possibly can because of the amount of time that's involved. I don't know if I should bring up item number 10 now or after that's brought up.
That has to wait for 10. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Stednick and anybody else on orals? This can be on any subject not on the agenda.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for hearing me. I'm Dan Stednick. I agree with Mike Wells that the city needs to immediately apply for federal assistance to repair or replace the seawall. We saw Jackie Spear in January had a quote from Van Ocampo for $8 million to replace the pier. Some of the quotes on repairing the seawall are $20 million there. The idea that the south end of the seawall from the pier south is more protected or less vulnerable is belied by the fact that if I walk down on the beach and look at the seawall immediately in front of Council Chambers here, there's a huge rusty hole full of white cutting boards stacked on top of each other and packed with sealant. You can see where the seawall is failing from the pier south and the pier north. So one thing we're two things internationally known for in Pacifica, whales and Beach Boulevard collapsing. If you want any public trust in this $35 million library bond that we're voting in November, you've got to do something about the seawall. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We also have John Raymond on oral communications. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is John Raymond. I live in Sharp Park on Beach Boulevard, and I'm just here to support what all the prior speakers have said about the seawall. I think it really should be replaced. I think this is a wonderful neighborhood that I think is worth saving. The alternative, doing nothing, means that eventually the seawall that we have now, which is, as people have said, is really just a retaining wall, is eventually going to fall down and the street's going to fall in. And then what you're going to have is just a whole area of no public access. It'll all be private property with a bunch of boulders piled up, and nobody can get there. And that's what our whole Northern Pacific will be like. I think the promenade is a very unique, beautiful place that's used by a lot of people, and I think I'd ask the council to please seek the federal funds and see if we can get this seawall replaced. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else? I don't know if staff would like to make a comment on, we have, under FEMA, whenever we learned early when I was first on council, to go looking immediately when an El Nino or something happens. And so we've been in contact with federal and state. Would you like to make any comments on that?
I'd be happy to address that under the staff communications and provide the council an update.
All right, thank you. Where are we? So no more public on orals, something that's not on the agenda, so we'll close that and move to, I think we're on council communications. Who would like to go first? Okay, Councilwoman Neihardt.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to make sure that everybody knows about our second meeting for our goal setting, which is on the 9th of July, and I do hope we have plenty of public participation because that's where we prioritize things in terms of the city. I also would like, hopefully, for us to ask when we're bringing forward the replacement issue, because that's a different thing than repairing, so I want to make sure we address that. I also wanted to let the council know that I attended what for now is the final meeting and voted. The Association of Bay Area Governments has move to merge, and it's not a complete merger. It's going to have this kind of slow bleeding transition, but we did vote to protect the employees of ABAG. So we'll see how that all goes, but we moved it forward. I also wanted to tell people that San Mateo County is looking at spending about $10 million, and they haven't voted to do this yet, so if you're interested, it's on affordable housing and putting forward a full multi-tier affordable housing priority package. So if you're interested in that, that's for the whole county, and I'm following it pretty closely. I also wanted to say that while the Water Committee for the City and County Association of Governments is on hold this particular month, we did look at meet with Hillary Papendick, who's doing the vulnerability assessment, and one of the things that became evident is that there is some FEMA money that we didn't know about in terms of potentially completing the data that we don't have for Pacifica about sand management and what's actually going on with sand. Some of the data in the littoral cell has been quite controversial and actually has been refuted in some or interpreted differently, I should say, and some, quite frankly, is also absent for Pacifica. And so drawing conclusions from that in relationship to Pacifica has been a challenge. So fixing that incomplete data would be useful for looking at our beaches and coastal erosion. So I'm hoping that we will look at going forward with that, and the city manager may be able to give you more about that. And last but not least, I hope everybody has a really safe and sane, I chose those words, because the 4th of July around here can be, well, loud is a small word. So I want to say, join us at Frontierland, enjoy the public meetings, and keep those fireworks to what's legal in Pacifica and no more. But thank you so much, and I hope I really thank Park Beach and Rec earlier, because they make that whole celebration happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Keener?
Yeah. Okay. So I attended the emergency preparedness meeting, and they were preparing for the presentation to the City Council well in advance, and they were also noting that the period for comments on the San Mateo County Hazard Mitigation Plan, of which Pacifica obviously has a part, being as it's part of San Mateo County, is closing in 2 days. So anybody that wants to comment, get busy, I guess. I attended the Congestion Management and Environmental Quality Committee of CCAG, the City and County Association of Governments, and that was earlier today. And the main news there is that they rolled out a draft of the San Mateo countywide transportation plan, of something like 200 or 300 pages of small type text, and so I and nobody else got to read all of it, but that also is coming down the pike, and you will have an opportunity to read it and comment on it later this summer or early fall. And finally, I attended the Peninsula Clean Energy Board meeting. They're still every 2 weeks. The board approved loans and sort of provisionally approved a choice among 3 electricity suppliers. And the actual choice will happen Wednesday morning. We have a 2-hour window during which their bids are stable, and we have to make our choice within that 2-hour window. And this is a pretty big choice. So after that, we'll know which supplier is the one. The 2 so-called losers, I guess you'd say. We do have sort of agreements with them also in case the winner for some reason can't fulfill its contract, or if we want to go with one of the other power suppliers for the second phase, which comes next April. So the first phase in the rollout will be in October. So second phase October, next April, and the third phase and final phase in the following October. At any rate, that's it for me.
All right, thank you. The airport noise situation is continuing the study. We're making progress. The 2 technical groups from the San Francisco Airport Noise Commission met on the 22nd. We're really moving forward. I'm very happy to say that the San Francisco Airport Roundtable Noise Group is able to talk about the Oakland flights and the San Jose flights. The newly formed Select Committee, which is for the South County, they are not talking about the Oakland flights. But I'm happy to say that we still can. And so the group of residents that I have that have been helping me to stay on top of everything as well, several of them were at the meeting on the 22nd. So we're moving forward, and we had hoped that we would be further, but I would say we're still on a positive trend. The big meeting that was supposed to have been today earlier was canceled because the work we put together on the 22nd was more comprehensive that we wanted the staff to work on to create a package for, and also that the South Select Committee is not as far along as we are, so they need some more time. So I don't have another date and time for you, but it'll be obviously in July, if we can, hopefully we can get to that. I want to say happy birthday to Councilmember Keener. And what was my other thing? So I think for me, I'm going to keep it at that pretty much so that we can get going on the public hearings and the staff. So if there's nothing else folks want to say, we will go to our staff communications.
Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. So we are actively pursuing grants for repairs to all of the damaged sites that you're familiar with. Of particular note is the Esplanade area that was sustained damage, the replacement and fix of the Malagra outfall pipe that was located along Palmetto, and the seawall repairs for Beach Boulevard. We've also entered into discussions with the Army Corps of Engineers on the idea of replacing the northern section of the seawall. And Brian Perkins from Jackie Spears' office has been really pivotal in terms of keeping us on their radar screen and keeping us getting attention from them and meeting with us. We have submitted letters of interest, as we were instructed to do, for one of their programs. I believe it's called the Section 103 program. And so they move very slowly, and we are waiting to hear back from them. But what I would like to offer is to bring you a more complete update at our next meeting on all of our grant status, because we have been making some good progress, and be happy to do that. I'll give you a fuller picture. I was going to mention the goal setting as well, and just highlight that it's going to be held at the police station, as we've been doing it the past few years. There'll be some breakfast at 9 o'clock with a start time at 9:30. So for those members of the public who'd like to join us, open to the public, would love to have them be there as well. And at the council's last meeting, we presented to you the city's new website. We gave you sort of a tour, but it wasn't yet live. And I wanted to bring to your attention that today it went live. It still needs a little bit of massaging around the edges, but it's a tremendous improvement compared to the previous website. I encourage you to go check it out, and encourage the public to also check it out and take a look and see the new look for Pacifica. So with that, I think I'll stop. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, I just want to repeat that we were immediately in touch with both federal and state and any local possibilities immediately. So, all right, so we're now on public hearings, and we have item 10. Just checking, which is certification of signatures of an initiative petition, adoption of resolution calling and giving notice for holding a general municipal election on Tuesday, November 8th, 2016, requesting consolidation of the general municipal election and the statewide general election, and submitting to the voters an ordinance proposed by initiative petition to amend ordinance number 391-C.S to authorize a future rezone of the quarry, which could include residential development under certain conditions. Direction to staff to prepare and release an impact study, including a fiscal analysis and analysis of potential and land use impacts. Proposed action: adopt the attached resolution, direct staff to prepare and release an impact study of the Pacifica Initiative, amending ordinance number 391-C.S, to authorize a future rezone of the quarry, which could include residential development under certain conditions, including a fiscal analysis and an analysis of potential land use impacts. Are we ready for staff report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. The Assistant City Attorney, Matthew Vicek, and myself are going to double team this report. So I'll start out. Matthew will jump in to address some of the other actions in the staff report, and then I'll summarize. I'd like to begin first with the 3 statements of issue on the staff report, one being certification of the results of the examination of the initiative petition signatures, 2, adoption of a resolution that is calling and giving notice for holding a general municipal election on Tuesday, November 8th, 2016, requesting the County of San Mateo to consolidate the city's general municipal election with the November 8th statewide general election and to provide election services, and submitting to the voters an ordinance proposed by initiative petition, which would amend ordinance number 391-CS to authorize the future rezone of the quarry, which could include residential development under certain conditions. And lastly, direction to staff to prepare and release an impact study of the initiative petition, including a fiscal analysis and analysis of potential land use impacts. The City of Pacifica must conduct an election on November 8th for the purpose of electing 2 city council members for a full term of 4 years. On May 16th, proponents of the Quarry Initiative submitted an initiative petition entitled Pacifica Initiative Amending Ordinance Number 391-CS to authorize a future rezone of the quarry, which could include residential development under certain conditions. The city clerk received 652 petitions and delivered those petition sections to the San Mateo County Elections Division on May 17th for verification of the signatures. The county reviewed 3,150 signatures submitted. The number of registered voters is 22,118. State law requires the number of valid signatures to be at least 10% of the registered voters of the municipal entity involved. The county's chief elections officer notified the city clerk on June 9th that of the 3,150 2,250 signatures submitted, 2,632 signatures were verified as valid. Once the elections official has examined and verified that the requisite number of voters signed the petition, the city clerk must then certify the results of the examination to the city council at its next regular meeting. Once an initiative is certified by the elections official, Elections Code Section 9215 requires the council to do one of the following. A, adopt the ordinance without alteration at the regular meeting at which the certification of the petition is presented or within 10 days after it is presented. B, submit the ordinance without alteration to the voters pursuant to subdivision B of Section 1405, unless the ordinance petitioned for is required to be, or for some reason is, submitted to the voters at a special election pursuant to subdivision A of Section 1405. And C, order a report pursuant to Section 9212 at the regular meeting at which the certification of the petition is presented. When the report is presented to the legislative body shall either adopt the ordinance within 10 days or order an election pursuant to subdivision B. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Vicek.
Evening, Council. As laid forward in the staff report, the Council doesn't have the option of taking no further action at this point. It has to take one of the three actions that the City Clerk just laid out. In recognition that the development of the quarry is an issue that has a lot of community interest, staff is not recommending adoption of the ordinance without voter approval. So the two remaining options then are to either place the initiative on the November ballot or request what's called the 9212 report under Section 9212 of the Elections Code. A 9212 report is intended to provide the Council with the opportunity to consider fiscal and land use impacts of the ordinance prior to making a decision about whether to adopt it or place it on the ballot. In particular, a 9212 report generally addresses the following: fiscal impacts, effects on general and specific plans, impacts on land uses, impacts on infrastructure, such as transportation, schools, parks, and open space, impacts on business activity and employment, and finally, impacts on traffic congestion, existing business districts, and vacant parcels of land. However, the 9212 report has some practical considerations. There are strict time limitations on the preparation and the submission of the 9212 report to the Council, and those time limitations require that it be brought back to you within 30 days of this evening when the City Clerk certifies the signatures on the petition. As a result of that 30-day timeline, staff's ability to prepare a thorough and comprehensive report is significantly limited. So, as is suggested to you in the staff report, a final option for the Council would be to place the initiative on the ballot without requesting preparation of a formal Section 9212 report, but direct staff to instead prepare an impact study, which would be available for thorough review prior to the November election. This impact study would provide a more robust public informational document than that 9212 report would be because of the additional time. It would provide similar information, but would be more thorough and comprehensive because staff wouldn't be limited by the 30-day time limit. It could provide an analysis, for instance, on the following issues: financial impacts, including costs and revenues to be generated by the development proposal and the market feasibility of the proposed uses; potential environmental impacts, including endangered species, wetland expansion, non-native species removal, and impact of upgraded open space with public access; public services impacts, including traffic, Highway 1 widening, sewer and water capacity, school capacity, and other public services, including libraries and parks and recreation; emergency service impacts such as police and fire, including response times, facilities, and equipment; impacts on affordable housing goals, such as the goals under the Regional Housing Needs Assessment; project benefits and additions to the community; and finally, general plan and zoning consistency and development entitlements required. Staff anticipates that an impact study could be available to the public in early September, approximately 1 month prior to the issuance of the mail-in ballots. Requesting preparation of an impact study could provide staff with the requisite time to prepare a more thorough report and still provide voters with important information to assure that they have all the factual information necessary to make an informed decision on the November ballot measure. The target completion date for the impact study, as I mentioned, would be early September. With that, I'll hand it back over to the city clerk.
Thank you. In conclusion, staff is recommending that council place the quarry initiative on the ballot without requesting the 9212 report, along with the election of 2 council seats, and the council consolidate this election with the November 8th statewide election. Elections Code Section 10002 requires the City Council to request the county to provide election services, and Elections Code Section 10400 directs the City Council to request the county clerk to consolidate Pacifica's local election with the statewide general election. The attached resolution accomplishes these actions. It calls and gives notice for the holding of a general municipal election on Tuesday, November 8th, 2016, to elect 2 council members for full 4-year terms, submits the proposed ordinance to voters at the same election, and requests the county clerk to consolidate the city's general municipal election with the November 8th statewide general election, and requests the county of San Mateo to provide election services. The resolution also directs the city clerk to transmit a copy of the measure to the city attorney, and the city attorney is directed to prepare an impartial analysis of the measure, showing its effect on existing law and the operation of the measure. In addition, staff is recommending that the council direct staff to prepare an impact study, which has been discussed in the report, which will be released to the public in September of this year. The council will also consider placing a library funding measure on the ballot on a future agenda. Fiscal impact. The costs associated with placing the quarry initiative before the voters in November of 2016 are approximately $7,000, in addition to the base cost of the election. The impact study is expected to cost between $50,000 and $75,000, and these costs would be borne by the city. If council chooses to have an impact study prepared, the costs will be charged to the city attorney's budget, and an adjustment may be recommended during the mid-year budget update. Adoption of the ordinance without submission to the voters would eliminate the associated election cost and impact study cost. And that concludes our report.
Thank you. Councilwoman Nyhart?
I want to boil this down into something that makes some sense. So we really have 2 decisions, and that is accept it tonight as is. In other words, we could approve the plan, or put it on the ballot. And, you know, we're not completely stupid. So I'm going to say that my hunch is we would go to the ballot, because this is a very involved piece of property. If we go to the ballot, what's our time? We have how much of 30 days left?
You're talking about the preparation of the 9212 report, that option?
Yeah.
So, correct. So you can either put it on the ballot tonight, as a practical matter, if the council's not going to adopt it itself, then you can either put it on the ballot tonight, in order that staff prepare an impact report, or ask for a 9212 report, and then in a meeting roughly 28 days from tonight, within the 30-day window, it'll come back to you. You'll have a 9212 report, and then you'll put it on the ballot. So it's...
Okay, but so 22 days is what you're saying is 28 days?
Staff has 30 days to prepare it, and as a practical matter, that gives them about 20 or 21 days to actually pull together a very complicated report.
That's what I'm trying to get at. And the 9212 is ostensibly under those conditions to help us decide whether or not we want to put it on the ballot or simply adopt it.
Which is probably not at issue.
Probably not. I'm just guessing. I don't know that. So I'm curious about the impact study. Is there any way that could be earlier for the public and as comprehensive, in other words, following the same guidelines of the 9212?
I would defer some of those questions to the planning director, who's been part of that process, but my sense is that working within that 30-day window doesn't allow staff to create a very informative public informational document that would give voters information about what the effects of the measure would be. that's a very, very tight timeframe.
Okay.
I would agree with that, and the portion of the report that will take the most time is analyzing the fiscal impacts, and within a 30-day time frame, we could get a very, I guess, simple analysis on what the estimated tax revenue and then what the estimated cost to provide services. In preparing for this item, staff was anticipating that the council and the public may want an analysis of market feasibility of what is being proposed, as well as effects on existing businesses in town. So the addition of commercial space, what will that do to existing commercial spaces? So that sort of market feasibility study is very difficult to do within 30 days, and I shouldn't say it's difficult. I think it would be almost impossible to be able to complete that level of analysis in 30 days.
So could it be done before the end of August? I mean, people want to digest things before they have an opportunity to vote on them.
We have spoke to the consultants who would help us with this, and I think early September is tight already. I can tell you we can promise to work as hard as we can to get it to you as quickly as possible and to the public as quickly as possible.
Okay. And just one last question. We did this before, and it was through the city attorney. Did the city attorney use a consultant in the past?
I can't say for certain, but I've looked at that 9212 report, and my impression that it had a fair amount of time invested in it, and that it was not prepared in-house.
Okay. That's what I wanted to.
Any other questions? Yeah. Councilman Keeter?
So my reading of 9212 doesn't indicate that the 9212 report is specifically for city council. I think it's for anybody and everybody. In other words, for the public as well. Can you point me to specific language in this that says that it's aimed at city council?
Well, I didn't mean to suggest that it's only for the council. It becomes a public document that everybody has access to. If the council was to investigate the impacts of this measure in the context of a 9212 report, it would allow the council another 30 days to figure out whether or not to adopt it or put it on the ballot. And so the 9212 report is, it's implicit in the way the statute is created that it's designed to give the council some information when it's making that decision. It also becomes a public informational document.
Yeah.
But here, my sense is that there's probably only one result, that the council is likely to put this on the ballot. Right. And if that's so, then the 9212 report doesn't provide you any information that's going to be useful to you in making your decision. Its real impact is by providing the public with information when they go to the ballot in November to decide whether or not to approve or not this ballot measure. And so in that context, there's no reason to tie your hands and force yourself to provide the report in 30 days. You can do it as an impact study instead and get a more robust document.
Well, I think there may be some reasons to take a 9212 report other than merely informing council, and I think that that the list of items that the report may discuss includes just about anything on on the initiative.
I agree. Again, I didn't mean to suggest that the 9212 report is only for council. I think it becomes a resource for the public. There's also no limit to the number of things that the impact study could study.
Right.
The only difference between the two approaches is that one has a time limitation and one does not.
Well, there's a few other differences too, and we'll get to those. That's all for now.
Okay, so I had like 4 pages of questions and hours of chat. So I'm going to forego my questions at the moment and get to the public. So if there's no more questions, open it up to the... Sorry.
I just had one. My understanding is we could do the exact same report we would do for a 9212, but more in depth if we gave you more time.
That's correct.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
So, all right, I have quite a lot of cards here on item 10. So Stan Zevin and Paul Huell and Margaret Goodell and Brent Ritz for starters. Oh, by the way, could you raise your hands in the back? It's dark back there, so wave them if you can't hear any of us. You can't hear now? Tell your neighbor if you heard me in case they didn't, but anyway.
I'm pretty sure they couldn't hear our city attorney because I was having trouble.
So do wave your arms wildly if you, because we can't see too well back there. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Stan Zevin, and I'll be reading remarks from Dinah Verby. I urge the City Council to direct staff and the City Attorney to prepare an election report regarding the quarry ballot measure pursuant to Elections Code Section 9212. This report is imperative to inform the public about the true impacts of the quarry ballot initiative and to clarify the many questions the confusing ballot language has generated. A 9212 report was done for the last quarry initiative in 2006, and there is no reason not to do it for the current one. I strongly disagree with staff's recommendation that 9212 report is not warranted. This recommendation is inappropriately based on staff's own interests rather than the interests of the public and the electorate. The alternative impact report suggested by staff is inadequate as it will not be done in time for the printing of the primary ballot arguments, which are due on August 19th. I also take issue with the fact that once again, only one draft resolution has been presented to the City Council for actions tonight, the one preferred by staff, rather than the alternative favored by the public, which includes the 9212 election report. The City Council was elected to represent the electorate. So please do what your constituents are asking. Please disregard the staff recommendation and vote tonight to have a 9212 report prepared. I also request that the Council set a reasonable deadline for submission of questions by the public to be answered in the 9212 report, and to allow the public to submit these questions via email to the city. Speaking for myself, I strongly support what Dinah said. I'm going to ask one question. The ballot measure does not cap the gross square footage of the residential units, but does allow up to 4 stories in height residential structure. Can the city limit the total gross square footage of residential space if the developer proposes very large residential units, say the size of the bungalows up above? I have several more questions, but I'm not going to have the time to ask them. I would second that we could, any questions that don't get asked tonight, that we have at least a little time to submit them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry. So, Paul?
My name is Paul Huell. I'm the developer for the Quarry team, and I wanted to use this opportunity to talk to you real briefly, just to give my 50,000-foot philosophy of the project. And the quickest I can do it to take as little of your time is a small analogy. Analogy is that we all have red blood cells. and we need them to survive when our body makes red blood cells. But I don't believe any of us are made just to produce red blood cells. Likewise with my company needs to produce a profit, but that is not what I believe my company stands for or the mission of my company is. And so knowing that I need to make a profit, but also knowing that my mission is not just to maximize my profit. And this particular project I took on because I believe that in the long run, we can really present a very nice option and restore a piece of coast that was torn up and beat up by prior owners. And I brought along here for you a picture which is also on my website, which showed what it looked like back in '96, where it was completely stripped, and I'll just leave that with you so that you can see it. And I'm hoping that our team gets the opportunity to create and restore some of the wetlands that were there before all this abuse of the property happened, and the majority of the project being, again, of the acreage being restored to where the public has an opportunity to enjoy that. And I hope that everybody can keep that in mind in order to do that there needs to be some development for us to do that. So thank you very much for your time and consideration of that, and all the time that you guys invest and that the City of Pacifica invests. And I hope that I get the opportunity to become a good corporate citizen here long-term through our ownership of the quarry and the consequent properties we hope to construct there. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Margaret Goodell?
Margaret Goodale, Pacifica. Good evening, Council. I believe that you support an informed electorate. If you are willing to support an informed electorate, we need information about this project in order to include it on the ballot. There's a deadline for that. It isn't September. Well, your staff is very hardworking and really trustworthy. They can do this. They can get us the information and answer our questions in time for the ballot arguments to be submitted so that the public can vote from a position of clarity, so that we can know what we're voting on. It's terrifically important. Please, please direct our staff, all of our staff, to meet a deadline that allows the electorate the answers we need to vote smartly. Those answers need to be before us before the ballot arguments are submitted. So, a couple of questions. Does this measure rezone the quarry to allow 206 residential units without prior environmental or planning review? Another question. Does the measure approve a project plan or just the 206 residential units? Third question. Could the 206 residential units be built without building the hotel and bungalows and commercial area? 4, does the measure have any guarantees that the hotel and commercial development will be planned and implemented? 5, does the measure have a traffic plan? 6, in what ways will the measure amend the 1983 ordinance? Will the measure eliminate the requirement for a public vote for future residential projects in the quarry, as long as certain conditions are made? Those are just some of the questions. There are many more. Please, again, direct our staff to have answers for us in time for those answers and those considerations to be put on the ballot and on the arguments that we will be sending out to all voters. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brent Ritz?
Hi, good evening again, Council. Brent Ritz. So in regards to this, I think council has decision bad number 1 or decision bad number 2. It doesn't sound like you really have much of a choice in the box. From my stance, it seems like we have a couple issues. It seems to me like we're just changing zoning, and there will be a tentative track map that'll be issued at some point. In this case, the EIR, Environmental Impact Report is what you call it, will be addressed then. And that's quite a long ways off at this point. So I think there's going to be a number of hurdles that have to be met long before we even get down to this road. But I also see the fears and apprehensions and ignorance, myself included, in regard to this project, which I would like to see some answers to a certain extent. So to my mind, from my past development experience, first one is traffic mitigation. How are you going to make a left-hand turn lane on that part of the road? These are all costly things. I'd say in the community, the big thing is also the environmental impact. I think that everybody has concerns on that. Why I would agree with the developer in this case, and I'm actually for the development. How is that handled? What does it look like? Does that issue get addressed now or later? And the other thing too is the schools here are completely impacted. How does that get addressed? I don't have the slightest idea, but I think these are all things that are important. I would advocate that a position where we basically put an impact report in for staff would probably be adequate at this point. So all these issues are going to be brought up when a tentative track map is issued and well before a final map or even a white report gets done. We're talking about a lengthy process. This is just one hurdle in the equation. In my opinion, this is just a zoning issue. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Celeste Langell, Nancy Morrison, and Peter Loeb. Did I skip you? Oh, you're coming. This is for this, right? Yeah.
Good evening, Celeste Langill. I too want to urge the City Council to direct staff and the City Attorney to prepare the 9212 Election Code report. I really think this is all about timing and informing the voters so that they can have information that's printed in the primary ballot arguments, and that due date's August 19th. And to me, that's crucial. I know it's a lot to ask for staff. I know it's a lot of information, but this is so important that I really would urge, the 9212 report. It offers the same information. It's delineated in the election code that was mentioned in the impact report. So the same information is asked for in the elections code. This is a very important parcel or parcels, and just looking and rereading this ballot initiative, it does rezone for residential, but basically this is an 8-page specific plan. This is really what it is, and it's going to impact our city. And I just don't think that the electorate knows that it's not just rezoning for residential, that it is really a specific plan. It has something that's, whether good or bad, it does tie the city down to the plan as proposed. And the caps on the commercial zoning are really interesting to me, the gross square footage cap, and then there is no square footage cap on residential. What does that mean to our city? We don't know. I think it's crucial, the fact that the city owns the creek parcel. That's not really represented as part of this, but we do have a say in what happens here. And we have a important say in what happens to our creek and the surrounding areas, and especially the trail that the public uses. That's ours. That's not the developers, and that's become a part of the city that's really important. So I strongly argue for the 9212 report because the timing is really important. And I also request that council set a reasonable deadline for submissions of questions by the public, and if they could email in their questions, that would be really helpful, I think. So thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Morrison and Peter Loeb, Lori Goldberg, Dan Stegnick, Edie Hovernell, Karen Rosenstein, and then anybody else?
Nancy Morrison here. I'd like to reiterate
that a report that's delivered after the August 19th deadline for the ballot proposals is useless. It's a waste of time and money. The public has a right to the information, and that needs to be presented in a timely fashion. The main thing I wanted to talk about was just the proposed ballot language. I think it's very confusing what this says. Shall the initiative amending this to authorize the future rezone of the Rockaway Quarry, which could include residential development, we don't know, under certain conditions, we don't know what those might be, entitled Pacifica Initiative Amending Ordinance, da, da, da. I find that all very confusing. So, you know, in 1983, the voters passed strongly, you know, the measure to adopt that there would always be, the public have a right to vote on residential in the quarry. You know, commercial, people could build commercial. This has always been the option. This is not where the money's made, though. So if the voters adopted the rule that any residential in the quarry be approved by voters, that demonstrated how important it is to people. The proposed ballot language would not give the voters any idea that the actual issue they're voting on regarding residential is whether up to 206 multi-family units should be authorized. The proposed wording only says, which could include residential development. The ballot language should at least, you know, be clear so that people understand what they're voting for. And I think it's very hard to understand this. Currently, it's kind of vague legalese. So I think the council should not approve the ballot language that does not make it clear that the measure the people are voting on is about approving as many as 206 residential units, in addition to the site plan. So it's also not clear that that's what's being considered. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Peter Loeb, and then Lori Goldberg.
Peter Loeb, I have a lot to say. I'm going to read something. Because the site plan map is part of the initiative and therefore part of the measure, we will be voting on whether to amend the existing ordinance to include the site plan. This is really unusual. I've read the language over and over and over. If this measure passes, we will amend the existing ordinance and incorporate into that ordinance the Exhibit A, the site plan, the land use plan that's part of the initiative. It says that specifically. Section 3B1 says it would authorize a mixed-use development that includes hotel, recreational, retail, residential uses, and that the City Council finds is substantially consistent with the conceptual land use plan reflected in the map attached hereto as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. That language is language that would, if the measure passed, would become part of the existing ordinance along with that site plan. So the voters will be voting on the site plan. And that needs to be made clear to people. That's what my concern is. And that needs to be made clear prior to the deadline for ballot arguments, which is August 19. That's what the concern of many of us is that we're going to be trying to write a ballot argument, but we're going to be doing it in a vacuum with no authority to address any of these questions. We will be voting on a land use plan that has not undergone any environmental review, has not been through any city planning process, has not been approved by any of the agencies that must review it, and without any public process. This is an end run around CEQA. There's going to be no analysis of impacts on endangered species habitat, no analysis of traffic impacts, feasibility of any of this. No analysis of those ridgetop 2,500 square foot bungalows or parking requirements or infrastructure needs. People will be voting on a site plan that has had no review. And if they approve it, it's an end run around the entire process. We need an in-depth analysis of the legal consequences of passing this measure, and we need answers to a lot of questions that have been raised. I don't have time to raise them here. It's too big and important an issue to let slide without the city doing its due diligence to inform the voters, and we need that sooner rather than later. I guess my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori Goldberg, Dan Stegnick, and Edie Havernell.
I don't know how things are done in Michigan, but we do not live in Michigan. We live in Pacifica. And what really bothers me is I was walking in the quarry, because I walk around there a lot, and someone on the Open Space Committee said that the City Council was already going to put this on the ballot the way it is. And I hope that's not true, because I feel like I want to have a public say. I live here in Pacifica. I've lived here 36 years. I've rented here. I own a house. I'm working to own a house now, and I feel this is very important, and I feel like I went to a meeting at Nick's that the developer was supposed to be at, but he wasn't. Setner was there, and some guy that works for the developer came up to me and said that it was going to be 206 apartments. So we need to know what's going on. We need to know about the rezoning part of it. We need to know about, is it going to be houses or apartments? How big are these apartments going to be? We need to know traffic studies. We need to know how many cars are going to be allowed to park. Where are they going to park? We already have enough traffic in Pacifica right now. The setback, I was told, was supposed to be 300 feet. So why is it going to be 100 feet now? Someone told me that the developer can change the parcels up or sell some of the parcels to other developers. So, and that 75% is not considered. I mean, I want to know what is really going to be open space. The developer had petitioners that were paid by him, and people did not get to see what the petition said, and different stories were told to people like, oh, you're doing this to save the quarry, you're doing this to keep open space. Now, maybe in Michigan, they do that to people, but in Pacifica, we need to know the truth. I want to know the truth. I don't like being lied to. But I didn't sign a petition because I had already been through this with the Florida developer. We need a 9212 report because the developer compared his thing, oh, my plan's better than Peebles. Well, if Peebles could have a 9212 report, then we should have a 9221 report by the election code section on this, because this is very confusing, tricking people, and if they can do that in Michigan, that's fine, but I think in Pacifica, we really need to know the truth, and we don't want to be tricked, and we don't want to be lied to, and we don't want people to prosper on us for their own greed. And also, at that meeting at Nick's, Setner said that, I heard him say that they need to build the residential first because they need the money to do the rest of the, whatever they're promising to do. What if they just do the residential and that's it? Or what if they get the residential and then they sell the property? What happens then? This is just too serious of a situation for Pacifica to just let this go the way it is.
Okay, thank you. Dan Stegnick and Edie Havernell and Karen Rosenstein and anybody else.
Good evening, council members. Thanks for hearing me again tonight. I'm Dan Stegnick. I think the most important thing about the 9212 is 3 words: clear-eyed and impartial. We want the public to be clear-eyed about what they're voting on. I've read this thing about 20 times, and it's not particularly clearly written here, and it's got a severability clause that any conflicting documents, whether they're unconstitutional or invalid, thrown out, everything else stands as it is. I'm sure I'm sure it would be inconvenient for the city attorney to produce a 9212 within 30 days, but it would probably be less convenient for them to produce it next Tuesday, 7 days. But that's the exact time period that the 9212 was created in 2006. It was requested on July 24th, 2006, Monday, and it was produced 7 days later, 5 business days later, on August 1st, 2006. So the idea that 28 calendar days, 22 business days, this is an impossible task. obviously, we've proved that wrong time and time before. A market feasibility study isn't a necessary part of the 9212. It's not called out there anywhere. I mean, we're putting a surf shop next to a surf shop in Pedro Point. We're putting a national Chinese chain within 3/4 of a mile of 2 privately owned Chinese restaurants. We're putting a Mexican restaurant, national chain, within, 300 yards of a privately owned Mexican restaurant. It's not necessarily. Clear-eyed. Here's some questions we need to ask. What happens to the zoning if the developer goes bankrupt the day before this passes? Gets picked up by the bank, they subdivide it. The zoning stands as residential. 34 years ago, was when this was passed, 1983, 391 CS. The Rockaway Quarry site may not be developed for residential use without a vote of the people. Residential use, but they could have built a hotel there, they could have built a commercial there any time within the last 34 years. They just chose not to. They're here for the residential. There's legal ambiguity in 5B of the ballot initiative. Permit no more than 206 units of multifamily housing within that area. Multifamily housing is a legally ambiguous term, and the city attorney has to determine exactly what that means. Does that mean one apartment unit, one unit of multifamily housing, or is that one apartment building? There's actually no requirement that any apartment buildings are created. It simply says no more than 181 residential apartment units. Anyway, clear-eyed and impartial. That's why you're doing this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Edie Hovernell and Karen Rosenstein and anybody else.
Hello, I'm Edie. So obviously I don't know what's going on, so I was over there forever. But I have some questions, and I don't know, can you answer them? You can't answer them. Darn. Okay, so I'm just going to ask the question, and then I don't know how I get them answered eventually. I guess maybe I'll email you, Sue, or something to get the answers. I don't know, or Lori. So the question is, if there's a 9212 done, does it still, what does the council, what can they do at that point? If it's done, does it still go on the ballot as far as the measure to be voted on in November? Or do they have a chance to say, no, we don't want this? That's one question. Because it wasn't clear, it was unclear. The other thing is, if we don't do the 9212, I guarantee, very few people really watch, of the 40,000 people who live in Pacifica, very few of them actually watch this stuff. So I think I have to agree with everyone else, is that, when I get my ballot in the mail, I read what the synopsis are. I read them and I go, okay, this is the synopsis of what this is, and I understand it. So if we don't do the 9212, people won't know what it is, and it's already been very confusing. However, I do have to say, if the plan is pretty close to what it is now, it's a beautiful plan, but it's not clear. It just hasn't been clear. So I encourage you to do the 9212. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Rosenstein?
Good evening, City Council and staff. Karen Rosenstein, Rockaway Beach. I'm here tonight to ask the City Council to take the time to do either of the reports, though I do prefer the 9212 that we had done 10 years ago. The ballot measure as submitted, as you're obviously hearing tonight, is not easy to understand. I'm also dismayed to read that the entire initiative will not be printed in the voters' information pamphlet, as I was reading this afternoon. Yes, some of us do have access to the net and can look everything up in great detail, but not everyone does. I believe all voters should have access to the information regarding the issues before us when we are voting, particularly on something as important as this piece of property. Thus, I'd like the council to amend that particular part of the staff report and have the entire initiative printed in the voter pamphlet. In addition, I'm wondering why, if we require city council candidates to help pay for the cost of printing the voter pamphlet, Why isn't the developer who is submitting this initiative being asked to contribute to the cost of printing the voter pamphlet that his initiative is being put in front of us with? Regarding the staff report, as I was reading it, I saw release dates for that report ranging from a vague early September, which, considering that's Labor Day weekend on top of that, could be as late as, 7th, 8th, to quote, September, which could be as late as Friday, September 30th. Absentee ballots go out less than 2 weeks later. Could the council please set an actual date for the release of this report to help us understand and give us time to really look over the information? And yes, the 9212 was done in the time limit, as we are also saying tonight. I support and really hope that all the previous questions have been answered. I have a lot more. I'd love to be able to submit them in email because I know I'm going to walk out here tonight and think of 5 more. So in closing, I'd like to end with a quote that I just saw from Rachel Carson, written years ago. "The boundary between sea and land is the most fleeting, transitory feature of the earth, and we are talking about building next to such an area." Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else? Seeing no one, I'll close the public comment. Sorry. And if you could indulge me, folks, I would like a minute for you guys to stand up and wiggle, and I'll be right back.
I wanted to ask a question before
You can ask
we
a
got
question.
too far away from it. So the 9212 isn't printed in the ballot statement, correct?
That's correct.
But the ballot arguments would be based on the 9212. And I think,
They could be.
well, I think that's something that nobody took into account in this assessment. I always kind of rankle when we start off with accusing staff of things that I didn't hear anybody think about the ballot arguments in the discussion about this. And frankly, I didn't. So I appreciate that because I just looked up the deadlines and things. So I think it's clear we need information. I was hoping for more information and a better report than because I just reread what was put together previously. So, but in lieu of that, I think we can probably come up with some compromise dates. Does that make sense?
It sure does. And if Mayor Degree is calling for a break, that gives us a chance to compare notes and
Okay.
also be better able to respond.
Awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate your indulgence for a few minutes. Thank you.
I'm going to go back over here.
Turn that off. All right, so I'll bring it back to council. We are on item 10, I believe, aren't we? Yes. The initiative, the quarry initiative. So, council, anybody want to start?
Well, I kind of did before, so.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah.
Did you have some questions?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a question for sure, and it is about the resolution to put the initiative on the ballot. And in section 4, it says, "The full text of the measure shall not be printed in the voter information pamphlet." Now, I'm just dumbfounded by this. Is that even legal?
It is legal. It's explicitly legal. It's also fairly normal procedure. Most of the time, and I think it's largely driven by cost, frankly. It's expensive to print all those words in a size that most folks can't read. The information that is available.
They can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
And I can't hear you.
Yeah, just get closer to your microphone.
I'm really sorry. From where I sit, I'm worried that I'm blowing everybody's ears out. It is normal. It's explicitly allowed under the Elections Code, and it's done because often the presumption is that people are not reading the ballot language at the time when they're voting in the booth, and they're more likely to read things along the lines of the ballot arguments or even the city attorney's impartial analysis of it. It can be inserted, but it does have a substantial cost that goes along with that. I suppose the one thing that I would throw out there is that to the degree that everyone has expressed confusion over what the ballot language says, the ballot language itself is not particularly clear in this case, and it's worth taking that into account.
So I've seen state ballot initiatives in their entirety in the voter information pamphlet that are much longer than this. And I think it's just unconscionable that it wouldn't be printed. So how much would it cost to print this thing in the voter information pamphlet? Because otherwise people are dependent on getting it from the city's website, and how many people do that? Well, not very many.
I can't answer your cost question.
I'm sorry, we can't.
Okay, great.
Yeah, okay.
The city clerk just shared that she did check on that, and it would add 20% to the cost. So as reported in the staff report, the amount for this item would be $7,000. So an additional 20% of that $7,000.
So, yeah.
$1,400?
Yeah, $1,400.
As an estimate.
Yeah, that's not a lot of money. So
it's certainly allowable to print it in the ballot pamphlet.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Well, I was understanding the difference, the actual ballot statement, the vote, is what was in there, not the whole resolution. That still is the same on the voting form.
The language that's in section 1 of the resolution
Correct.
That is the yes or no boxes, that language would be on the ballot.
Yes.
As would be the ballot arguments would be included in the pamphlet and the city attorney's impartial analysis. As the resolution is currently worded, the ballot pamphlet would not include the full language of the proposed initiative. But it could be included.
In for a penny, in for a pound.
You mean the voter information pamphlet,
Right.
not the ballot pamphlet. Not
Correct,
the
I misspoke.
Ballot information, the voter information pamphlet, the thing that's sent out ahead of when we vote, and you get to sit there and read it and so on. Yeah. Okay.
Correct. The ballot would
Well,
only
I was
include.
clarifying that. That was my point.
Correct. The ballot would only include the information that's in the box under section 1.
Right. Okay. Okay, we've settled that issue.
Anything else?
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that a 9212 report is a very good idea, and probably the main reason for it is that it has a date certain when it has to be done, and that date is 30 days from now. And that'll be done before we put it on the ballot, and importantly, it'll be done before the for and against sides have to submit their primary their ballot arguments, which are due supposedly on the August 19th. So I realize that staff is stretched. They were stretched before this came up, and I think they will just have to deal with it if this passes, if this 9212 report passes. One other issue with it is I personally would like to see questions from council and the public accepted for this 9212 report, like the report that was generated in 2006. And I'm thinking that, you know, just as a limit on how long they would be accepted, I was thinking maybe through next Wednesday. So the 4th of July weekend, and then we have 2 days after that. Is that right?
Yeah, I
haven't
wrote
looked at
down
a
the
calendar.
6th, and then 14 days later is the 20th, and that gives us enough time to publish it before the 25th. So,
Well, 30 days will be actually the 27th.
so we're having another council
July.
meeting? Is that in the plan?
We have a council meeting here.
We have a council meeting in early August. So it says in the, I'm reading from 9212 again, the report shall be presented to the legislative body, that's us, within the time prescribed by the legislative body, but no later than 30 days after the election official certifies to the legislative body. So all that it has to do is be presented to us by the 27th, and we can put this on the ballot on August 8th. Am I right?
In order for it to be presented to you in 30 days, you would have to be available for it to be presented to you.
Yeah.
Therefore, you would need to have a meeting.
Meeting, a public meeting.
It's
So
July
you'd either
20
have the 25th or the
Yes.
27th.
Okay, so it'd have to
Reading
be
the
the
same
25th.
language.
25th
It was
is-
pretty clear, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then you'll be required to take action that night. Yeah.
Right.
Great. Great, so, yeah. So I would propose that we do require a 9212 report, and that we, staff take questions from city council members and from the public through next Wednesday, and that would be the 6th of July, and that the report will be presented to us on the 25th of July. And at that time, we'll put it on the ballot, hopefully with language that that the complete initiative will be printed in the voter information pamphlet.
So, but before the council takes more further action on that, may I just make a couple of comments? And one, I do want to highlight
Okay,
that.
Sue?
So far, so good?
Okay.
I do want to highlight that the August 19th date was not on our radar screen. In fact, we were just trying to err on the side of getting the community as much information as possible. So appreciate that clarification, and certainly understand that that's important to the community. So if the council wants to give us that direction, we will certainly do our very best to bring back the best report that we can in that short amount of time. For the questions from the public, what we would like to do is to set up an email address so that they all go to one place,
Okay.
so that nobody gets lost. And we'd like to take a step at responding to them in an FAQ and to cluster them together. Because if we try to respond to every question, I think that would be really a gargantuan task. So I would ask for that flexibility to manage it in that way.
Yeah.
And I think the next Wednesday's fine. We will go ahead and get started on the report to the best of our ability, and like I said, then plan to respond to the questions through FAQs that we'll bring back at the same time we bring back the 9212 report, if that's the council's direction.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good to me. Just, lumping similar questions together into the FAQ, but the FAQ is part of the 9212 report.
Well, I'm sure we'll figure out a way of doing that, yes.
Yeah. And, everybody has different questions. My questions are primarily legal. And so I would expect that the city attorney will have a fairly large role in preparing this report.
Well, they will certainly play a role, but we have actually planned for planning to be the coordinator of putting it together.
Okay.
And so I know Tina will rely on the city attorney's office as much as she needs to. Okay. And on that note, I also, listening to the public comments, I wanted to offer to the council tonight, if you wish, or we can bring it back at another time, but there seems to be some need for clarification around the planning process. That is, it's related to the initiative, but it's really separate. And if you would like to hear more about that tonight, I talked with planning director. She's happy to go over it with you. If you would like to hear about it when we come back, happy to do it then too. But it seems important to make sure that the public understands how they're separate and how planning will process the application once it's submitted.
That's not on the agenda.
We talked about whether that was allowed and whether it would be appropriate, and the city attorneys advised us that we could offer that.
Okay. Okay.
But it's really at your discretion if you would like to have that tonight or a later time.
Okay. Okay. I'll be quiet for a
now?
minute. And,
okay,
let somebody else
Councilwoman Nyhart?
The 6th, the 20th, and 25th are exactly the dates I wrote down, and I'm appreciative in terms of that. I do know that we meet individually with you and are briefed, and I certainly am not asking for anything across those, but usually that's the opportunity when these kinds of issues come up, and it didn't occur to me about the ballot language, and that makes perfect sense. As I said to several people in the audience, it makes perfect sense to me. Didn't think about it. We don't think about everything. But I am stunned that none of us brought it up to you apparently, and yet it's a big deal tonight. And I'm pretty frustrated at that process. I think that the adversarialness is unwarranted in this particular situation, and I think that the intent of trying to do the very best information possible was not a bad intent. It just didn't take into account the ballot argument. And
Yes.
for all of us, and once we thought about it, absolutely, I got where we were going immediately. Sorry I didn't think about it ahead of time to head that off. And that's what we should be doing as council when we meet with you, is thinking about those questions that we hear and need to bring forward, because this should be a working body that works with our staff. And it's really kind of unconscionable to not do that. So I really am concerned about the process of what happened here, more so than absolutely, I want the best information out for the public. I want the best information that people can make their decision about. And obviously, it needed to go. I mean, we've had many referendums about this in the past. It needed to go to the public. There was no way. I don't think the quarry owners today are very shocked by that. But I really want to stress that nobody thought about it, and we are the ones that are responsible to bring it up also. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm always extremely pleased that the public shows up. And so none of us wrote the initiative. And the initiative did spark, like, oh my goodness, what are they talking about? So like I said, I had like 3 or 4 pages, which sometimes seem redundant, but it's, and staff is very patient with me. And I have to beg their indulgence because I'm not trying to be offensive to anybody, but I'm very skeptical about everything. And the more verbiage there is, the more questioning I get. And so I would like to add that, yes, I think all the dates we're talking about and the 9212 for those reasons are extremely important. I would like to say that when you're answering all the questions, that it be clear even then, because the initiative language is so cumbersome and so all over the place, that when you're putting this together, if at the very top, so if we lose it as we're going down because of the initiative itself, that it's clear if a yes vote happens, this is what's going to happen. This also could happen. This could not happen. This also could not happen, if that makes any sense. So that it's really clear that once you put all of it together, that if we feel overwhelmed at the end, we can go right back all the time to get back on focus of what, if this is a yes, this is what it means. This is legally what it means. These are the things. And I think that would cover the question of, you know, could it just end up being housing? Could it just, could it be sold? Could it be sold? Could it be sold at all? So I think clarity is the most important thing, and getting it out there to the public in those timely fashions is, and so staff, you've already heard so many questions. I think your minds are already got the thing practically written so as much, but it's horrendous. Some of the things we say we want in the impact report, some of those things aren't going to be answered. And so if council wants to go at this point and ask about where the planning part, again, this all comes from the initiative, I think is where you're going. The initiative starts out with saying, we want to change that ordinance of 83, and then goes on and on and on, and then it has the map, which is like what, a template? Is it a plan? Is it a project? So is that where you're getting at when you're saying maybe we would like to hear?
Well, it's actually maybe better described as sort of a parallel path, because the developer will come in and submit an application to planning, has not done that yet.
Correct.
And then planning will proceed with the evaluating it, processing it, excuse me. And so anyway, if you would like to hear some more from the planning director, she'd be very happy to provide that. Before we go down that road, we were just chatting here. It would be wonderful to have a sense from the council what your highest priority topics for the 9212 report would be, just so that we have a sense for where to really focus our efforts. I mean, if the fiscal impact is, you know, the highest priority, that would be great to know. If they're all equal priority, you can tell us that too. But if there's something that's more important than others, please let us know that.
Right, and I think I already pretty much outlined mine, although your point here about the parallel, I think that should be on the top too. Again, this is directed by the initiative language.
If I may, and I appreciate all that's been said about the unexpectedness of this wrinkle about the ballot arguments. I just don't think that was on anyone's radar when we came into the room tonight. And our intent really was to create a robust informational document. And so to that end, there's going to be some part of this report that is going to be driven by questions from council, from the public. There are also presumably going to be the staff's best attempts to address more typical issues having to do with an initiative. One example of the sort of what those things might be is on page 2 of the staff report for this item. There was a bulleted list near the bottom. So this is going to be a bit of a sprint, frankly, you know, especially for the questions from council and the public. In practical terms, you're talking about 2 weeks to address all of that, and then fitting in as many of the analyses about these issues as possible within the week prior to those questions coming in. So taking into account that it's going to be a best effort, and to the city manager's question, which are the issues on this bulleted list that you care most about? Because all we're going to have when we leave the room tonight is the direction from the three of you about what are your priorities.
Okay, yes, question, sure.
Just because this came up out here and we haven't said it from the dais clearly, the ballot itself is what people gathered signatures on, and we don't get to change that.
That's correct.
That's right. Okay. So consequently, what it means in very plain language is my priority out of it, because I still don't know what the ballot argument means, and you kind of think I would, but it's got these nuances to it that are written sort of legalese instead of for the public to understand. So my number one is what it does and what it doesn't do. Very simply, clearly spelled out.
And I would agree with that. My questions are mainly with respect to the legalese and legal arguments underneath them. I think the effects on general and specific plans are also of importance. The impacts on infrastructure, such as transportation, schools, et cetera, we know that there's going to be impacts, but I think the answers, in quotes, to questions about that will be speculative. They'll just be opinions, right? Because we don't really have any studies yet. They're coming later or after the election or whatever. So I think on those, I would give it more of a skim and state explicitly that you're offering an opinion, and it waits to be supported or not supported by various studies that will be undertaken later. And the same goes for impacts on business activity and employment, impacts on traffic congestion. I think there again, we know that there's going to be impacts. We don't know how big they'll be. So I think, again, it's a matter of opinion at this point, without any data to go on. So the legal questions relating to how the initiative is worded, though, those have at their basis the initiative itself. And we're counting on you to sort through all this dross and give us some simplified version of it. So that's my number one. And number two, I think the effects on the general plan or not only the effects on the general plan, but the effects of the general plan on the development, the general plan and zoning regulations on the development, because those regulations are also fixed. And so, we should be able to furnish some answers on those matters.
To your point, we will do our best to answer all of those questions about what the legal effect is. This will be an easier environment in which to unpack the initiative than the 500 words we were allowed under the Elections Code to do the ballot summary and title, which is a very truncated discussion. So hopefully,
and I think the ballot summary was fair. It was really even-handed. Okay. But it, like you say, it doesn't communicate as well as as you might if you had more space. Yeah.
Yeah, so again, I would say, too much jargon is confusing. I'd like to get to the meat of the matter. What is it? What does a yes mean exactly? What could it also mean, if that's pertinent? What could it not mean? But exactly, like they said, even that little box there with a yes or no, this is to authorize a future rezone, which could include residential development. So you already have ambiguities right there. So if you could just even take that little 2 lines and fix them up, so we know exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. So, okay, yes, Councilman Keener?
Regarding the special email address, could we establish that tonight? Something like query questions at, pacifica.org or whatever it is?
Let me go check with my IT staff in the back and see if I can get you an answer.
Okay.
And I have a question. I know I asked you, Matthew, before, but I want to make sure it's clear. The HPD overlay that was in the 1983, that is not tampered with at all, correct?
That's correct. I can find you a page number to point you to if you give me a moment.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to be that picky, but just making sure we're on tape.
On page, let's see, it's packet page 137. The last sentence of A. That language that you see in A is, with one slight addition that's not relevant to your question, that is the original ballot, that is the 1983 language. So it continues to read, the rezoning
so
does not remove
that stays there. I wasn't
HPD
sure, that's
overlay.
all. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Do we have an answer about the emails?
The staff says we can take Councilmember Keener's suggestion, query questions at ci.pacifica.ca.us.
And you're going to repeat that?
Query questions, plural, at ci.pacifica.ca.us.
Questions, remember, is with an S.
Yes, plural.
Okay.
And we'll take those questions as suggested by July 6th, if that's the council's ultimate decision.
So I think we've ultimated. Are we ultimated? Do we all agree? So do you need a vote or an emotion and all that good stuff?
Yes, we do.
We do. So I'm going to do my best to articulate that motion as I understand it.
Sounds good.
The council is approving by a motion tonight to be entered in the minutes. There will not be a resolution. The following, that staff shall prepare a Site Elections Code Section 9212 report that addresses the issues that are identified in the staff report for Section 9212 report, and in addition addresses questions that staff receives from the council and the public by July 6th at the email address that the city manager just identified, and brings that back by the
25th.
July 25th council meeting, at which the council will consider again whether or not to adopt or place this measure on the ballot.
Okay. Do I need to beg for the, please keep it clear?
You do not.
So
That was exactly the motion I was going to make, except I was going to make it a little clearer.
I would like to have that refer not to the staff report as so much as to the 9212 language itself, because that's just all inclusive, okay? And we've indicated what we think are the main points that we see, but there will be questions submitted by the public that are just, have a far different focus and interest than what we have. So I think that saying that you'll focus on the issues raised in the 9212 statute itself is better than saying you'll focus on the issues raised in the staff report.
If I may, that was going to be my clarification, just to be that it just say the requirements of the 9212 plus the addition of the questions that the public and the council submit. And that would be simpler and more straightforward for the report part. Sorry.
That's quite all right. I'm going to take one more shot at it just because I want it to be clear in the minutes.
Sure.
Council is adopting by minute order a motion to direct staff to prepare a 9212 report that will address all of the issues discussed in section 9212 of the Elections Code, and in addition, address the questions that are raised by council and members of the public by July 6th at the email address pointed out by the city manager, and bring that back at the July 25th meeting. Thank you.
Everybody
So
okay?
moved.
So moved. Okay, are we good ready for a vote?
That's fine. Well, you got to second it, but I was going to move it to begin with, so we're happy.
All right.
Somebody's got to second it, though.
I did.
Oh, okay.
And so that's approved by all of us this evening, and sorry.
Okay.
Thank you all for that. Sorry. I think we're on item, what?
So we have Tina's report left.
We finished this item. If you wanted that was before this item was
I think
finished.
we're moving on.
Okay.
And I can't find my agenda again.
That's all that was on the agenda.
Oh, are we finished then? Are we telling me?
Yeah.
Are we at the end of the meeting?
That's done.
All right. So,
Happy
yeah,
4th
you
of
happy
July.
4th. Please do have a very happy 4th. Be good out there. And keep democracy going. Thank you for showing up. Oh, I can lose that.